Today, I want to talk to you about something you're not going to like. Something that will probably make you so uncomfortable that you might want to close this video right now. But don't do it, because if you feel that discomfort, it means I'm touching on a truth you've been avoiding for too long. A truth that Friedrich Nietzsche understood better than anyone. A truth that will hurt you, but that can set you free if you are willing to listen. Think about this. How many times have you felt trapped, weak, unable to face the world? How many times have you taken refuge in excuses, blaming fate, circumstances, others? Do you know what Nietzsche would say about that? That weakness not only consumes you, but is a disease that contaminates everything around it. And here comes the worst part. You're not only trapped, you're also part of a system that glorifies that weakness, that protects it, that feeds it. Why? Because it's easier to live that way. It's easier not to fight. It's easier to be just another one in the herd. But Nietzsche wasn't here to make you feel comfortable. He wasn't here to pat you on the back and tell you that everything will be all right. He hated weak people, and not because they were bad, but because they represent everything that is wrong in the world. And when I talk about weakness, I'm not referring to a lack of physical strength, but to something much deeper, much darker. I'm talking about a weakness of spirit, a lack of will to face reality and create your own destiny. Let me ask you something. What do you do when something doesn't go as you expected? Do you lament? Do you stay still waiting for someone to come rescue you? Nietzsche would say, that's the greatest crime against life itself. Because for him, life is a battlefield, a stage where only those who have the courage to rise and fight again and again survive. And here's the paradox. The society we live in hates the strong, the rebels, those who refuse to follow the established script. Does that sound familiar? Imagine this. A person falls, fails, suffers. What does the world do? It tells them that it's okay to be weak, that it's okay to give up, that it's the system's fault, fate's fault, anything but their own. But Nietzsche didn't believe in that. He believed in the Übermensch, the Superman, a figure who rises above mediocrity, who needs no excuses or comfort, someone who takes everything life throws at them and transforms it into power. And now, you're probably thinking, but why so much hatred towards the weak? What's wrong with helping those in need? The answer is brutally simple. Because, according to Nietzsche, by protecting and glorifying weakness, you're perpetuating a cycle of mediocrity. You're creating a world where progress stops, where excellence is seen as a threat and not as an aspiration. You're feeding a herd that never questions anything, that never challenges anything, that never creates anything. But here's the part that hurts the most. Nietzsche wouldn't hate you for being weak. He would hate you for staying in that state, for accepting mediocrity as if it were an inevitable destiny. Because, according to him, we all carry within us the potential to be something more, something better. But most choose not to see it. Most prefer to stay comfortable, safe, protected by a world that tells them they don't have to change, that they don't have to strive, that it's okay to be just another one. And you know what's the worst part? Nietzsche was right. Look at yourself. Look at us. We live in a world where weakness is not only tolerated but celebrated, where victimhood is a currency, where effort is ridiculed, where failure is seen as an end and not as a beginning. Nietzsche called it the morality of the slaves, a mentality that glorifies submission, that idolizes suffering, that despises greatness. Have you ever wondered why most people hate those who dare to stand out, who don't ask permission to be great? It's because those people are a constant reminder of what they could be, but chose not to be. It's because the light of the strong exposes the shadow of the weak, and that shadow is unbearable to look at. Nietzsche knew this, and that's why he had no mercy. Because, according to him, compassion doesn't help the weak, it chains them even more. Now tell me, who are you? Are you the one who complains, who waits, who follows the herd? Or are you the one who fights, who creates, who rises again and again? Because here is the truth that no one wants to tell you. No one is coming to save you. No one will fix your life for you. No one will give you the power you need to be great. That power is within you, but you'll only find it if you stop looking for excuses and start looking for reasons. Nietzsche didn't hate weak people because they were born weak. He hated them because they chose to stay that way. Because they preferred to be victims instead of heroes. Because they preferred the comfort of mediocrity over the risk of greatness. And you, what do you prefer? To live in the comfort of weakness or to burn in the fire of transformation? Think about it carefully, because in the end, it all comes down to a choice. Will you continue to be part of the herd, or will you dare to be the wolf who doesn't need permission to live by their own rules? The decision is yours, and what you choose will determine whether you live as just another one, or if you finally start to live for real. Let's go deeper. Nietzsche didn't hate weak people because he considered them inferior. He didn't see them as a system's failure, number. He saw them as the symptom of something much more serious, something that corrodes humanity from within, a disease that robs us of strength, will, the desire to live intensely. A disease that, to him, was the greatest enemy of life itself. Resignation. Let me ask you something. How many times have you given up before even trying? How many times have you convinced yourself that you don't deserve more, that you're not enough, that the world is too cruel for you? Those thoughts, that mentality, are what Nietzsche despised with all his being. Because for him, giving up wasn't just an act of weakness, but an act of betrayal. Betrayal to yourself, to your potential, to everything you could be. And here's the interesting part. Nietzsche wasn't born strong. He didn't come into the world as an unstoppable force of will and power. On the contrary, he spent much of his life fighting his own fragility, his own illness, his own demons. And it was precisely that struggle that made him understand that true strength isn't found in the body, but in the spirit. Not in what you have, but in what you're willing to do with it. But we live in a world that glorifies comfort, that rewards passivity, that celebrates those who settle. And that's what Nietzsche hated. Because for him, life wasn't a place to rest. It was a challenge, a constant test, a battlefield where every day you had to prove to yourself that you were worthy of existing. And don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean that life is a constant struggle against others. Number. It's a struggle against something much more fearsome, against yourself. Look around you. How many people do you know who live on autopilot? Who follow the rules without questioning them, who accept what they're given without asking for more, who spend their days waiting for a miracle that never comes? Nietzsche called them the last men, and he described them with a brutality that will make you tremble. To him, they were the final result of a humanity that had lost its spark, its desire to grow, to take risks, to live intensely. Do you recognize yourself in that description? If so, don't worry, this isn't the end of your story, because, according to Nietzsche, we all carry within us the capacity to become something more, something better. But that transformation doesn't happen by chance. It requires a decision. A brutal, painful, uncomfortable decision. The decision to destroy everything you are to build something new. This is what Nietzsche called eternal recurrence. The idea that you must live your life as if you were destined to repeat it over and over again, eternally. What does this mean? That every decision you make matters. that every choice you make defines not only who you are, but who you will be in the future. And if that doesn't scare you, it's because you haven't truly understood it. Because eternal recurrence isn't a theory to study in a book. It's a call to action, a challenge to live with an intensity that few dared to experience. And here comes the darkest part. Nietzsche knew that most people will never accept that challenge, that they'd prefer to stay in the comfort of their weakness, in the safety of their mediocrity. Why? Because change is scary. Because greatness demands sacrifices that few are willing to make. Because it's easier to blame the world, others, fate, than to take responsibility for your own life. But let me tell you something. If you're watching this, if you've come this far, it's because a part of you knows you're destined for something more. Because a part of you refuses to accept that this is all there is to your life. And that's exactly what Nietzsche wanted to awaken in people, that fire, that rage, that dissatisfaction that drives you to move, to fight, to create. Do you know what the greatest enemy of progress is? It's not failure, it's not fear, it's not criticism, it's apathy. That state of indifference where nothing matters, where everything is the same, where you become a spectator of your own life. Nietzsche hated it because he knew it was the first step towards spiritual death. And here's the key point. Being alive doesn't just mean breathing. Being alive means feeling, fighting, loving, hating, experiencing every moment with an intensity that makes you tremble. And that's what Nietzsche wanted for you. He didn't hate weak people because they were less. He hated them because he saw in them wasted potential, missed opportunities, lives not lived. Because he knew they could be so much more, but they chose not to be. So here's my final question for you. What are you going to do with this information? Are you going to continue living as just another one in the herd, settling for what you have, accepting the rules without questioning them? Or are you going to rise up, fight, become something you couldn't even imagine yourself? The choice is yours, and, as Nietzsche would say, that choice is everything. So let's return to the most important question. What are you willing to do to stop being a spectator of your life? Because here's the real secret Nietzsche left us. There is no redemption, there is no salvation, there is no guaranteed happy ending. There is only struggle, an endless struggle that doesn't promise glory, but gives you something much more valuable, meaning. The meaning of living a life that you choose, that you shape, that belongs to no one else but you. But don't get confused. I'm not here to sell you a cheap self-improvement tale, no. Because the path I'm talking about isn't pretty, it isn't comfortable, and it isn't easy. It's a path that demands you face everything you fear, everything you hate, and, most difficult of all, yourself. And here comes one of Nietzsche's most provocative concepts, the death of God. What does this mean? It's not a religious statement, it's a metaphor to tell you that there's no longer an external judge, that there's no longer a universal authority to tell you what is right and what is wrong. You are the one who must define it. You are the one who must create your own value system, your own morality, your own purpose. And that's not a small task. It's a burden that few are willing to carry. Because it's much easier to follow preset rules, accept others' truths, walk on already traced paths. But Nietzsche would say that ease comes at a price, your soul. Now, I'll tell you something that might make you angry, but you need to hear it. Every time you look for someone to tell you what to do, every time you blindly follow an authority figure, every time you surrender to the inertia of what everyone does, you're killing the potential within you. Because the world doesn't need more followers. The world needs creators. People who not only accept reality as it is, but have the courage to transform it. And you know what? That doesn't mean you have to change the entire world. Sometimes the most revolutionary transformation is the one you make within yourself. Nietzsche believed that we all carry a creator inside, but to liberate it, we must first go through a phase of destruction. Destroy our limiting beliefs, our fears, our excuses. And that destruction hurts, but it's the only path to something real. At this point, you're probably wondering, is all this effort worth it? Is it worth living with that intensity, with that constant struggle? And the answer is simple. It depends on you. Because Nietzsche had no interest in convincing you of anything. He didn't want you to follow him blindly or accept his ideas without questioning them. In fact, he would hate that. Nietzsche believed in independence, in critical thinking, in each individual's ability to decide their own path. And now I make it clear to you. This is your moment to decide. You can stay where you are, comfortable, safe, protected by the walls of your comfort zone. Or you can take a step into the unknown, into chaos, into a life that won't be perfect, but that will be yours. You choose. Before we continue, I want to extend an invitation. If all of this resonates with you, if you feel these words are touching something deep within you, I want you to share it in the comments. Write the phrase, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." It's one of Nietzsche's most powerful teachings, and I want to see how many of those watching this are truly willing to reflect on their own why. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. This isn't a space for mediocrity or easy answers. Here, we talk about what hurts, what matters, what transforms. So, if you're looking for content that challenges you, that pushes you out of your comfort zone, this is your place. Now, back to Nietzsche. There's something else you need to understand. The will to power. It's one of his most misunderstood concepts, but also one of the most essential. It's not about power over others. It's not about dominating or controlling. It's about power over yourself, the ability to take control of your life, to become the master of your own destiny. The will to power isn't something you find outside of yourself. It's something you must cultivate from within, something that grows every time you decide to act despite fear, every time you choose the hard path over the easy one, every time you dare to be different. And here's the trick. You don't need to be perfect to start. You just need to start. Because perfection isn't the goal. The goal is growth, evolution, the constant effort to become a more authentic version of yourself. So, what will you do now? Will you keep waiting for a perfect moment that will never come? Will you keep feeding the excuses that keep you trapped? Or will you take control and start building something that truly matters? Because, in the end, the only person who can save you from mediocrity is you. And, as Nietzsche would say, he who is not willing to fight for his life doesn't deserve to live it. This is the moment to act. Choose who you want to be. Choose how you want to live. And remember, the struggle isn't a punishment, it's a privilege. Because only those who are willing to fight have the opportunity to win.